The Ring of Steall is a classic Scottish mountaineering route in the Mamores Hills to the south of Glen Nevis. With perfect weather in June, it was the ideal time for this route, giving us a challenging scramble and stunning views for miles around. Walking from Fort William into Glen Nevis, we then walked and hitched our way up the glen to the top car park, ready to start the route. Starting at this car park, we walked up through the Nevis Gorge before crossing the wire bridge by Steall Hut and then climbing Angarnach. Crossing the burn at the base of the Steall Falls, we stuck close to the River Nevis to avoid the bog that lay to our right. Then we began the steep climb of our first munro of the day. The path up Angarnach took us through the bowl of the corrie, and it was clear to see here that the mountain was still on the move. There were loose boulders and landslide debris all around us. Eventually, at an altitude of about 600 metres, the path turned right and led us out of the corrie bowl onto the northeast spur of Angarnach. Making our way onto the spur, we could see a rare cloud-free Ben Nevis across the valley from us. Up ahead we saw Scuravane, which would be the final summit on our route that day. Once on the spur, the path wound upwards, across steeper, rockier ground, bringing us between some crags and onto a flatter section near the top of Angarnach. Now that we were out of the corrie bowl, we had views not just of our route for the rest of the day and Ben Nevis, but of some of the grey corries, and to the easterly Mamores, with Rannoch Moor behind them. Reaching the summit of Angarnach just before midday, we could see the route stretching out before us for the first time. From here, our route would take us south for 400 metres to the munro top of Angarnach. From there we would continue to our next munro, Stub Corrie Carn. From there we would head to Ambotic, which overlooks Kinlochleven and the Blackwater Reservoir. And from here we would turn west and then north again, to cross the Devil's Ridge onto Scuravane, our final summit of the day. We would finish by descending northwest from Scuravane, back to Achraich in Glen Nevis. From the summit of Angarnach, our path started off easy, but soon became more technical. We clambered over awkward boulders and along a narrow ledge above a sheer cliff to reach Angarnach, meeting some fell runners on the way, and then we faced a steep, rocky descent to the Bealach with Stub Corrie Carn. The ascent of Stop Corria Carn was easier again. Reaching the summit, on top of our second munro, with views to the impressive cliffs of Ambotic ahead, and the Mamores laid out all around us, you got the sense of being deep in the heart of the mountains. An easy descent on a mix of grass and gentle scree then brought us to the base of Ambotic, and we began to climb again. Although the path was decent at first, passing 900 metres altitude, it started to take us through steep boulder field, with precarious loose rocks making us choose our route carefully. The summit of Ambotic, our third munro, gave us views north through the centre of the Ring of Steall to Ben Nevis, and to the south down to Loch Leven and the Blackwater Reservoir. We met a couple of other people here who had climbed up from Kinloch Leven, but they were heading in the opposite direction from us. After a quick stop for food and photos, we continued on. Descending west from Ambotic, following the ridge which forms the southern wall of Corria Vale, we made our way to the Bialach, connecting Ambotic to Scoranure. By this point, we were running a bit low on water, and we were worried we would have to take a large detour descending deep into one of the corries to find a burn to fill up from. Fortunately, just ahead of us, and not too far from our route, we found a decent flowing burn, where we could fill our bottles and have lunch. Water replenished, we made our way directly up onto the south ridge of Scoranure, with some precarious scrambling on steep grass and rock. We followed this ridge to the summit, and we now had views directly along the Devil's Ridge to Scoravane, as well as back to the whole rest of the Ring of Steall, and to our west to Stobban and Muluchan and Coyen, which had climbed in the winter. The walk along the Devil's Ridge was one of my favourite parts of the day. Approaching from the south, the path progressively gets more difficult, starting to take you over some scrambly boulders. The crux of the route is a set of improbably balanced slabs of rock, separating Stop Corria Vale from Scoravane. Once you are over this crux, a gently winding path up grassy slopes takes you to the summit of Scuravane, putting you directly above Glen Nevis again. On this side, the Ring of Steall is laid out, from Angarnach to Stobcaria Carn and Bottich, Scura Newer, Stobcaria Vale, and finally Scuravane, where I'm standing to record this. Further behind, in the distance, we have the Ballachulish Hills, and then Ardgur, Morvern, and Neudart. Looking across the other side of the glen from us, we have Ben Nevis with a bowl of Corrie Ewan in front of it. To the right of that, Carmel Jerrig, followed by Anach Mór, Anach Beg, and in front of Anach Beg, Corrie Gufsacan and Meal Cuvan. Our final descent brought us northwest from the summit, on an easy ridge, which then became a steeper scree field further down. Despite all the challenges on previous scrambles on the route, this scree field proved to be one of the more difficult obstacles we had to cross. At the bottom of the scree slope, we returned to walking on grassy hillside again. Reaching Glen Nevis around 7 o'clock in the evening, we hitched a lift back from Achraich with a couple who were planning to climb Ben Nevis the next day and had been scouting out the mountain from below. They dropped us off further down the glen, and from here we walked back over Cow Hill and into Fort William.